well, I believe.
Okay.
So we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come before you again. As you know, we think it's in everyone's interest to keep you up to date on things as they develop with respect to the CJC project. We have submitted a construction update report that you have. Nothing too out of the ordinary, except I would like to point out one milestone. The building has been fully erected for the juvenile detention facility, which is a milestone with respect to the project that's described in the first paragraph of our report. I'll let Bill Rath talk a little bit more in detail about some of the construction aspects that have occurred since we last met. But I would like to, just in the spirit of kind of keeping you abreast of kind of out of the normal developments, just want to bring something to your attention. It is not something that we have full answers to or that we have kind of brought home yet, except the issue has been highlighted, and that's also listed under the miscellaneous items in the report, and that relates to the work being done by DTE Electric, not to be confused with DTE Energy Services. DTE Energy Services is the company that's building the CUP. DTE, the regulated utility, is constructing lines to the CUP from various places, or at least two places throughout the city. We were notified recently, certainly after our last meeting, that they are experiencing some delays with running what would be the second line coming to the CUP. You'll remember from when you approved the central utility plant that there are two lines. One has been activated. The second line has been delayed. We don't know exactly definitively how long at this point, but they had some concerns with an underground duct bank, which occurred outside of our property. And so they're having to work around that. And so once they made our team aware of it, we began some preliminary discussions with Barton Malow, Rock, and DTE Energy Services, and trying to determine exactly how much, if any, that will impact the substantial completion date of the project. We are confident at this point that we're, have almost all the information we need to make that assessment along with our partners, and we are in the process of doing so. But just wanted to forecast that for you, let you know it is something that we are dealing with, and certainly as we meet in the next month or so, we'll be able to give you more information on that. Bill or Carter, is there anything you want to add to that aspect at this point?
I think that was a pretty good summary. I would just say the line that we currently have in place gives enough power to the project to power everything we need, both in terms of construction and in terms of when the CJC is actually open and active. The second line is purely a redundant feed in case there's an issue with the first one. And so the only issues that we're projecting in terms of scheduling would be for testing the CUP and making sure that it's sort of completely online in the way that we intend to operate it when we're actually operating the CJC. But in terms of being able to power construction and things of that nature, at least at this point, we don't believe that there's an issue. DTES would have to inform us of something on that end. So,
am I correct in understanding that the delay is expected to be no longer than the end of April, probably?
Currently, that's the date that DTE has given us for when they'll complete the line, and then they would be able to commission the line and actually run power to the site in May. We were projected to have power from that line as of April 1st. So it is almost a 2-month delay in that sense. And so we're still determining with Barton Malow and DTE Energy Services and DTE whether that would pose a delay for us for our August target date when the CUP is supposed to be fully online and functional. So that's where things stand.
Okay,
Yeah, Carter, I think that's an important point. I think that when James was talking about
can you
timing,
identify yourself again for everyone?
yes, I'm
For the
sorry. I'm
record?
sorry,
Thank
Commissioner.
you.
My name is Bill Rath. I'm with the CGL team. We're involved with the county to help deliver this program. And so I was just going to say that with James, with respect to your description, um, this issue presents a risk to the delivery of the cup and not the broader complex, right? So we're on target for delivery in terms of the criminal justice center. This is really sort of a detail within that context that I think is very manageable.
Okay, thank you.
So the other point is not stated in your report, but I know it's something that this committee has been very much interested in. You will recall at the end of 2020, we had been discussing paying off the parking concession agreement, and we had in fact even presented for basic review a proposed agreement with Rock to that effect. And then COVID hit us, and there was some uncertainty about whether the county would have the funds to be able to pay that amount off. I'm happy to report, Commissioner, that the county executive has recently given us permission to start that process again with Bedrock. And so what we have done is presented a refreshed amendment to the parking concession agreement that hopefully they will agree to. We have every reason to believe that they will. We've been in full communication with them all along, and they are aware that really what we've been waiting on was, the county's financial picture to become a little bit more clear coming out of COVID. And so what I can report to you, while I can't tell you the specific details because I'll wait until we actually present that to the committee, which will be within a month, or to commission, I will say, which will be within a month, assuming that we reach an agreement. What I can tell you is that the basic terms will remain the same. We're refreshing the agreement. Some of the dates which were used previously are no longer relevant. Some of the notice issues we have changed, as well as kind of cleaning up some of the exhibits and the examples. I don't know if you remember the original, but it had several examples about how the payments would be calculated. That stuff is going to be refreshed because those dates are no longer relevant. Probably of greatest import to you, Mr. Chairman, is the $500,000 reduction that the county is receiving for paying off the concession agreement early. That is a part of the agreement as it stands, but I'll leave it at that for right now because I do not have a signed or agreed upon agreement yet from the other side. So that is a good thing. If executed, it will put parking into the hands of the county. And as you well know, that's such an important aspect of this project, which so many people have questions to, our ability to accommodate, importantly, our visitors, but most importantly, I'd say the employees who will be working every day at the site. And so that's a positive development that I know you had been waiting on. One thing that, and obviously we don't have to answer now, I think probably protocol would require that I bring it up first with Chairwoman Bell, but because this is would be a major change, we can discuss which committee. In the past, we've used committee of the whole on some of these major issues, or this special CJC committee, because you all, as members here, have perhaps more insight than others who have not been able to participate in the happenings of the jail. So that, that's something that we can decide once we have things solidified. But I did want to let you know of that development. I think you're muted, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I wondered if there's, since we were talking about parking, has there been any recent understanding, or have we done an assessment? Are we going to have to build additional parking still? Is that, and how is that going to work with the concession or the parking concession agreement?
So I'll answer the question as carefully as I can. With respect to the CJC, we do not anticipate building additional parking. We have a parking group that's been working extremely hard to make sure that we can accommodate all of the parking needs of employees as well as visitors. And so we are literally counting, and Bill Rath can testify to this, we are literally counting every space to make sure that we can accommodate everyone. And so as to the CJC, we don't anticipate additional parking being constructed or developed.
Is that going to include the jurors, I should say? Parking?
Yeah, so all people who would be required. So when we do our assessments, we take into account visitors, jurors, employees, judges, prosecutors, sheriff, everyone who would have a need to find themselves at the CJC.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah. So with that,
Continue. Yeah.
yeah. So Bill, would you like to kind of go over some of the construction developments since we last spoke and highlight those things which are most important?
I can. I believe you all have a copy of the report, so I'll just sort of pick the highlights. And I think, James, you've mentioned a couple of those. We are financially approaching 50% completion in terms of project spend, which is a major milestone also. And you can see in the report discussion around, completing the enclosure of the JDF facility, which, for the whole complex, it's 14 months worth of precast installation with something on the order of $30 million in project spend and 4,400 units of precast concrete and 40,000 man hours worked on site. So it is a fairly significant piece, right? And I think if you take a drive by, the project is definitely taking shape and has taken shape. And in terms of progress on the individual buildings, in general, the exterior enclosures are being buttoned up, and interior construction has initiated and is proceeding. That's the case at the adult detention facility, as well as the courthouse, as well as the admin building. The interior construction at JDF is lagging those other three buildings per plan, I should say. But the level of intensity, the pace of progress is significant in those three buildings at the ADF, the courthouse, and the admin buildings. So the team, the Barton Malla team, is moving quite efficiently through that process. And I think I mentioned last month that we have on the order of 450 workmen on site on any given day. Yeah, so if there are any questions, I can speak to those. The issue about the central utility plant, just to maybe be a bit more clear, that plant is provided with two separate sources of electrical power that tie back to two separate points on the DTE grid, right? That provides kind of a level of reliability, resiliency to the facility. And as Carter mentioned, each line that feeds the facility has enough capacity to handle the full load of the fully occupied facility. So that's, I think the piece that was discussed earlier is in my mind, is very manageable from a overall construction schedule point of view. Construction is moving forward very rapidly inside the buildings, as I've mentioned. A lot of mechanical installations, electrical installations, plumbing work, walls. We're not quite to the point of finished construction. This is what is referred to commonly in the industry as rough construction. So it's taking shape. It's moving fast. There's a little discussion here on site safety. 90 new site safety orientations this month. and the third successive month with no injuries. And of course, that's a preeminent concern in all of our minds, is the safety of all persons on site on a daily basis. So that's good news. That's excellent performance. The report touches on a minor issue with respect to environmental. It's more of a financial, clerical issue than it is anything of substantive impact. So I don't think there's much need to talk about that. And that's, yeah, I think there's some additional discussion here on participation. 30% of the hours worked on site in February were completed by Wayne County residents, which aligns with the percentage of hours on the project to date. And then 43% of the funds expended to date have gone to Wayne County businesses, with 11% of project contracts to women and minority-owned businesses. So I think that's a fairly strong performance in that category. Yeah, and then there's a little note. I know last time we talked a little bit about COVID, and there's a note in the report that refers to construction workers, like many people in the general population, are proceeding to be vaccinated. And so that should help alleviate concerns going forward. And to date, no issues, no significant issues with COVID that I'm aware of. So the final point in the report has to do with the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And that's the, from a planning and design process, that's the next big rock in the process. So I'll be focused on that in the next couple of months. So James, did I cover everything?
Yeah, and Tori will talk a little bit about the participation, and may even touch briefly on FF&E. But prior to that, Carter, will you just give a brief update on the substation? I know there was a tour conducted earlier this week, and just because that is something that you'll be hearing more about in the future, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to give you somewhat of a high-level summary of what's going on there.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just a second, Commissioner. James, I just wanted to ask, I guess, of Bill, if I could, on his report about the construction, where we're, I saw in the report that there were pop-outs for windows. Is that where they're cutting through the precast to install windows at a later date?
I believe the pop-outs, as referenced, are windows that are left out through a longer duration of time because they're being used, those openings are being used for purposes of material or even people movement, right? And so those pop-outs would be infilled at a later date. And again, that's part of a normal construction sequence.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to Commissioner Kenlock.
Yes, okay. I heard a lot of comments regarding DTE and their, coming, I guess, putting the development online, the complex online. My question is that what alternative sort of energy planning has gone into this complex? Are we using any other alternative energy sources? Geothermal or any other, green sort of power and generating, I guess, power for this location.
You'd probably want to direct that then to Mr. Heath. Did you want to take that one, James?
Well, so with respect to the energy efficiencies within the project, I'll allow that with Bill and the other construction folks, and if there's greater conversation, we can have that later on. But the power to the facility is provided, Commissioner Kenlock, through the central utility plant through DTE.
Thank you.
Bill, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think a question that it's a great question, number one, especially
Yes,
where we
really.
stand.
Yes.
I think a question of DTE is to what extent are they sourcing power from alternative sources? And I don't have data on that, in general, because I know that in the past they've had initiatives to sort of move away, or move in the direction of renewables, right? So I think the question to DTE is to what extent, what's the plan going forward to sort of maximize renewables and minimize reliance on traditional carbon fossil-based fuels. So that's one piece. With respect to the efficiencies in the new project, my expectation of ROC, and I don't know that we have specific numbers on this, and Carter, you may be familiar with the background on this piece, but in general, the new technologies that are being installed should provide us significant advancements in efficiencies going forward as compared to the baseline condition currently being experienced by the county.
I'm saying a project of this size, and like you said, where we are now in the conversations that are taking place just worldwide about major new constructions projects of not being so dependent on the traditional power grid. You have geothermal, you have wind, you have solar, and this is a large footprint. And I guess a lot of the discussion, what I'm asking right now, would have taken place early on, and it would have been integrated as far as other power sources, other power sources for this site. So I understand the efficiencies and the moving away from coal and fossil fuels and all of those things, but a major development, I would believe that you would also just on site look at where you can put power generating sources in as well.
Okay.
So you're right. Many of the decisions about independent power sources and the like, as you state, Commissioner Kinlock, would have been made at the very beginning design stages, and that is outside of the efficiencies that we experience. And there are reports several years old that when we meet, I can share with you, which show our projected energy savings for the new project versus our existing facilities, and I can tell you they're absolutely substantial for the county. But in terms of separate energy generating opportunities on site at the facility, that was not something that was part of the basis of design, which was ultimately approved.
Thank you.
Something that might benefit the commissioner is what happened very early on. There was another alternative source that was considered, and James, if you give him maybe you could get with Commissioner Kinlock and let him know about the Detroit recovery, energy recovery. I think that was what it was called, and how that did not work out, but that was considered very early on as another alternative source other than DTE. And
so those conversations did take place. Okay.
On that issue, certainly, yeah.
Okay.
But maybe just a brief explanation could be provided to him how that transpired and did not work out well for us, and that's why we had to quickly change gears and go with DTE.
So I mean that's correct, and so in line with what Bill said, when this initially came to fore as a project, there was strong consideration to, instead of DTE providing power, that power would be provided with DRE in association with the incinerator right next to the project. And as you well know, with it being your district and being in Detroit, the history of the incinerator and the ultimate fate of the incinerator.
Absolutely right.
And so prior to and if you were to read the original development agreement, it carved out a decision about how we would power the facility as a whole, because we were at that point still in negotiations with DRE as well as DTE about who would build the cup, who would operate the cup, and how that power would be provided. As the project went along, it became clear to us that not only because DRE was undergoing substantial changes with respect to its leadership structure, but even with just the overall cost of the services they were going to provide, it became clear to us that DTE was our best source for not only constructing with DTE Energy Services, but also with providing power to the central utility plant that would in turn power the facility. And so we can give you somewhat of a more detailed breakdown of that of early history. But I just do want to reiterate that was, as Bill said, with respect to how the power would be generated coming to the cup and then distributed throughout the facility. It still was not kind of, separate power generating solutions on site for the CJC. And so, but yeah, we'd be happy when we have the meeting that we're putting together, have a discussion with you about that history.
Thank you.
I think the commissioner's on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kenlock, any other questions, or is that it?
Oh, that's it. Thank you. We can
Thank
proceed.
you. Thank you. James, did you want to continue the presentation?
Yeah, sure. Carter,
Maybe.
brief update on the substation, if you will, and then I'll turn over to Victoria. She tells me that she's back on the road and give some,
Yeah.
some summary comments.
Because
Once Carter's done, I can talk. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll just start with a sort of 1,000-foot view summary of where things stand. The city of Detroit, through their public lighting authority, has a substation that is actually currently on the CJC property. When we originally planned the design for the property, we didn't include the substation footprint in it, even though it's a small carve out in our property. But the city did, in fact, sell us that parcel. But they were still using that substation to power things like Detroit Receiving Hospital and some buildings on Wayne State's campus that are near the CJC. Throughout the project, we've had discussions with them about they were planning on turning this substation as well as all their other substations over to DTE and to discontinue powering these buildings with their own resources. And so they had always planned to decommission this substation. We received various end dates from them about when that would happen, but most recently and most accurately, they projected that would happen this spring, hopefully by the end of this month, in fact. And so earlier this week, folks from CGL and environmental consultant and ROC took a walkthrough of this substation to see what's inside the building, see what the demolition process might look like, see what any environmental remediation might be necessary once the building comes down and once all once it's been decommissioned and depowered. And so that those groups are getting together and putting their heads together on what the process might look like. In the meantime, we're working with the city of Detroit to find out exactly what their schedule is and what their decommissioning process looks like, what equipment they need to remove, if any, and those sorts of things. So we're working on multiple fronts to get this substation off of our property and hopefully make sure that we can properly do it from an environmental standpoint and also from a construction timing standpoint, so that we can add the space that was the substation to our parking lot on site. So that's where things stand. We had a pretty productive walkthrough this week, and we're having more discussions with both the construction teams and the city of Detroit to try to smooth things over.
You're on mute, Chair.
Hello?
The joke looked funny, I'll tell you that.
Yep, I'm gonna have to pay closer attention to my mute button. Was there anything else, James, that you had before we go to Victoria?
No, I'm happy to turn over to Ms. Edwards.
Good morning or good afternoon, Victoria.
Good afternoon. Victoria Ennis Edwards, Director of Wayne County Human Relations and Business Inclusion Division. Thank you again for your patience. I'm rolling again. Just to kind of expound upon what Bill said with our numbers, the project is tracking well. We are at a 37% right now for Wayne County residents. We are still, a little below the goal, but I expect, as I've said, as we get further and further and add more trades, we will have more Wayne County residents working on site, as well as they are above the 30% spend goal for Wayne County businesses and tracking at the 11% for women and minority businesses as well. Part of what a push to ensure that we exceed, not only meet, but exceed our numbers in some areas, we're doing additional outreach. Later today, I have a meeting to try to finalize. We will be doing a special workshop with the owner's advocate in April, and we're going to be highlighting the opportunities within the FF&E package. And it will be a series of workshops, the first one being in April. And what we're trying to do is open up and recruit additional vendors. We are reaching down to our Wayne County certified folks, our minority, our women-owned, our DBEs, and having them come out to hear what is available within the FF&E package. That is the first part. Besides letting them know, we're also going to be giving them the information up front about requirements, such as if there's additional insurance requirements, if there's a bid bond. We don't anticipate a lot of that because these are for goods versus a hard construction service. But what we're trying to do is recruit, and educate as many businesses as we can early on about the process, to make sure that every commodity has multiple businesses that can make an offer, at least bid during that portion. So that is some of the work we're doing behind the scenes, as Bill talked about. We're working with CGL, we're working with Rock and Barton Mallow and HOK as we go through the finishes and making sure that we are providing as many opportunities as possible. So I'm hoping by the next meeting, I will have additional information. Once we have finalized, and I will tell you right now, we are targeting April the 21st. It will be a Zoom workshop. We will have it posted on our social media. We'll be sending it out. Commissioner Anderson, I will send it to you to have you disseminate that flyer to all of the commissioners where they can share it in their newsletters and to businesses that they know. We're really trying to educate and get the word out about the opportunities that are going to be available with FF&E, and that's probably later on in the spring, early summer, and try to make sure that our businesses are ready for the opportunity.
Victoria, if I could, I'd just like to ask if you would send that to our clerk, our committee clerk also, and we'll make sure then that everyone gets it, all the commissioners get it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have anything additional in your report that you wanted to mention? I did have
No,
a question for you if not.
No, not right now. Again, unfortunately, it's every other month. I will be getting the new numbers probably in the next 10 days. So I should have the additional numbers for you at the next meeting. But right now, I think that's pretty much status quo, and we're heavy into the FF&E.
Okay. As far as contractors and a list of subcontractors, their location and the dollar amounts that they have received from this project, do we have an updated report to that effect?
The last report I sent to you a few weeks ago, I think it's on the third page, there is a breakout. What I can do is I will go back in and look for it and maybe pull that one page out and resend that to you. And it shows you the breakdown under each prime.
It was a question that someone sent me that requested that. So if you would I'd appreciate it, and I'll make sure they get it.
All righty, no problem.
And I believe there at the last meeting, or maybe the one prior to that, you had said the last, that there might be one, I believe one more bid proposal, going out, request for proposal, that before the FF&E. Was there something else, the finish work inside?
No, what you were talking about, building specialties, that
Right.
actually is out on the street right now. I think they just literally have all the proposals now back in, and they're doing the evaluation of that. There's an additional proposal, but I have a feeling the timing now might be either right at the same time or after the FF&E. We're talking about softscapes and hardscapes, and that's sometimes when you get to the sidewalk work, throwing seeds, grass, planting, some of the outside. Right now, they're still kind of building the box. So I do believe they're pushing back on the what they call the softscapes and hardscapes package. So that will be coming out, and I will keep you abreast once we have a firm fixed date on that one.
Great. I appreciate your diligence and your hard work. You really do a great job, and appreciate
Thank you.
all of you in keeping us.
My battery died.
All right. I just noticed the screen went black, but I didn't. Of course, we didn't know what happened. But welcome back, James. Do you have anything else right at this time?
No, that's all for us for now.
Okay, you had mentioned in January that the discussions, there was negotiations going on with the food contractor, I believe, or the caterer, and I just wondered if you had anything to update us on that. You had said you thought by March we should have it worked out, and I don't know if that had been resolved yet.
We're certainly getting close. Carter, do you want to give an update on the cafeteria?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're getting close. There are a few items that we're still negotiating from the contract, mainly the contributions to construction costs and infrastructure costs, in addition to the contributions that he was already going to make to do the finishes and things of that nature in his space. So we're still hammering out a few last details, but we've pretty much got an agreement down. Other than those items.
So does it look like we're going to recover the around 400,000 that I believe that's what we approved to go ahead and get the work underway?
So about 200,000 of that is for finishes and his installation of other items. We should absolutely get that money back. We're still figuring out how much he can contribute to the infrastructure costs in terms of ventilation and those sorts of things. I think he is actually pretty willing to contribute substantially towards that, but there would have to be some concessions from the county as well, and so we're trying to balance those items.
Okay, all right. I appreciate anything you could do the next meeting to let us know where we stand with that. And are there any commissioners, committee members that have any questions at this time?
It's been very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate all of you being here. I noticed we have Tim Johnson online here. I don't know if Tim, if you have any questions, welcome to.
I'm sure. I'm just wondering if that was an appropriate time to maybe schedule another tour for commissioners if they're interested.
I was thinking of that earlier. I was thinking about whether or not with the way certainly the weather is better. But maybe let's see. I know it was Chandler before, I think, that you worked with. Bill, I guess you would probably be the one that would take that over, right?
Yes, and actually, this is not the first time that question's been asked in the last several days. I think spring is in the air, right? Let's go walk a construction site. So we're currently working with the developer and the builder to establish a framework around the frequency and the size of those types of visits so that we, number one, ensure the safety of all participants to that process. And number two, don't do anything to impede the progress of the work, obviously.
Sure.
So I think I'll work through James Heath and we'll sort of formulate that framework. And then if we could work within that going forward, that'd be super.
And Tim Johnson would be probably the person he'll survey the members of the committee and other commissioners to see, who would like to, so we'll get numbers and logistics work with you guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Super.
Any other questions by members of the committee or any other commissioners that might be online? I didn't see anyone else on the commission that weren't on the committee.
So I will ask one question, Commissioner Anderson.
Sure.
Would you like us to contact the chairwoman regarding the parking concession, or is that a conversation that you would initially like to have?
I think having that discussion with the chair lady, would probably be a good idea, because she will likely want to have it go to a committee of the whole to make sure everyone's on up to speed on it.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Thank you.
Sure. And then
Yeah, this is a good time to have it, Madam, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The chair will be getting a committee of the whole together. So this is probably a good time to speak with her about that. So she may want to add it to the agenda.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if this is Mark Abbo, if I could ask a quick question about the
Sure.
park.
Go ahead.
James, pre-COVID, the incentive for the for us to take over the parking arrangement was, my recollection was that it was going to be about a $4 million savings. It had, our commitment was about $30 million, and it looked like we were going to buy it out for $26 million. You mentioned $500,000 in your discussion earlier. Am I?
No, you're not missing. So the reduction was with respect to the timing of the payout. That's how we get to that. We'll call it roughly $26-27 million. That's still there, but on top of that reduction, which was just time value of money, was an additional $500,000 straight reduction that was built into our discussion. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay, so the basic economic
agreement. That's right. The bones of the agreement are the same, Mark.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question, Mark. Any other questions? Any other questions or concerns? Or if not, Madam Clerk, we'll move the agenda.
Okay, we are moving to item E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Were there any other? I don't have any. Do you have any, Madam Clerk?
I do not.
Okay.
Moving on to item F, public comments.
Are there any public comments from anyone that's on the line? Anyone else? Can you open it, Madam Clerk? Unmute everyone to see if we have anyone.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the committee or has any questions? Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? Hearing none. Did we have anything submitted?
Not that I received, Chair.
Okay. I take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So move.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk.